All right, everybody. Welcome to this week's Zoom. It's been quite a little bit, but this is kind of the big first of many kind of use case highlight Zooms. So we have a special guest, Christina Tobin, and then we should be having Chuck Williams as well, showing up if he had availability to be speaking about this voting application that we've been working on for quite some time. It's really cool to see that it's actually finally coming to fruition. And it's awesome to be able to bring Christina on and have her share exactly everything that's going on and how we're going to be using this voting app and how we see it affecting things in the future. So everybody give Christina a warm welcome. Yeah, take it from here, Christina.
Well, thank you so much for thinking of me and having me today. It's wonderful to say hello to the Nexus community out there. I've known Colin a year now that we've met out in the field. I think it was at Nexus Earth when you had the event at Aspen Institute a couple of years ago. And so we connected there, and I am the founder of a nonprofit organization called Free and Equal Elections. And I founded it back in 2008 and 20s. And I realized at that time that there was a need to open up the electoral process. It's a nonprofit organization, and the mission is to open the electoral process through education and collaborative action. So Free and Equal Elections leads national, state, and local efforts to transform the electoral system in the United States by hosting all-inclusive gubernatorial, presidential, and senatorial debates, organizing electoral reform symposiums. We just had our 7th annual symposium last year in Colorado. We're producing our United We Stand tour in 2014. Last year it evolved into a tour where we had 4 stops. This year we have 6 or so. And those tours support uniting that is, support individuals running for office that is, and finally creating our blockchain election system app to promote transparency and empower voters with information about all of their candidate choices. So we're really known, I often say, for our presidential debates. That was really the creation of Free and Equal Elections in 2008 when we hosted our first presidential debate at the Mayflower in Washington, D.C. And this is the first time historically any presidential debate was nationally televised, or has been, outside of the mainstream Commission on Presidential Debates. In 2012, Larry King hopped on board as our co-moderator. We reached a lot of people worldwide, I guess over 1 billion, which is kind of a big number, but very humbling that so many people were engaged in that debate. And 16, we had Ed Asner, and a week from today, we'll be having our first presidential debate before the primary. We have 21 candidates confirmed, and we'll be mentioning this blockchain app at that event. But our debates, apart from the other ones, is that they're truly open debates. So to dial back in, we are focusing on the blockchain app. And the moment I met Colin Cantrell, and I really got familiar with Nexus Earth at Aspen Institute, and him bringing in Dr. Ron Paul, and I had known Jesse Ventura and Crucenis for quite some time. I was happy to help bring them in and collaborate and bring all these gentlemen together in one room. But it became very clear to me, my feeling with what Colin and his vision of wanting to make our world a better place, and elections, and of course the music industry, which is United We Stand, is also very involved with helping to clean up that too. But it became clear to me that we do need to have blockchain voting. As I mentioned before, will transform our voting system and bring about political transparency. So I'm excited to have him and other coders. I know Chuck Williams had previously worked with Dash, and other coders working on the front end, the back end. I'm learning very quickly how this blockchain app works, and I'm eager to learn more throughout the year.
Wonderful. Yeah, so everybody has a bit of an idea. We're testing out and we're building this out as a basic pilot, because right now there's not a whole lot of case law surrounding blockchain as far as court admissible evidence, et cetera, et cetera. So we're starting it off as a basic type of polling system where people can actually launch their own polls. And then the biggest thing is an informational portal where you can basically have free and equal information, because it's very difficult to find out what individuals, information that's, I guess, accurate. So hopefully, we're hoping to build this kind of open repository for different candidate information that should really help with the discernment value in the voting system, because if people aren't educated, if voters aren't educated, then the voting system itself is not very secure. So that's another thing that we're putting a big focus on. And we've been talking about this, I think, working on this idea for a couple of years now, Christina. Tritium wasn't ready back then, and so the app couldn't materialize as quickly as we wanted to, but now that it is, it's really cool to see it coming. So what do you envision the long-term plan of this voting app being, Christina?
Well, you can go on our website. I'll pull it up here right now at freeandequal.org, and there's a page there, /blockchain. You'll see on the main page of freeandequal.org. The election system app powered by Nexus is designed to promote transparency in the U.S. electoral process, inspire individuals to run for office, empower voters with information about their ballot system, and educate them on all of the choices. And so the version 1.0 features will include, starting off, database of every single candidate running for office: Democrats, Republicans, alternative party candidates, independents. We'll be targeting the congressional races first, because congressional races are far more important than the presidential race, and mainstream media and the system leads to believe otherwise. Candidate details, bio, voting record, debate archives, campaign contributions, ballot access, that is, requirements by jurisdiction, interactive candidate support tools, ask people in your community to run for office. I ran for office for Secretary of State when I was 28 years old, 2010. And so my take is, if I can run for statewide office, you can run for local office. We've got to get involved. It is our duty to help bring about peace within our nation, the United States of America, and our world. And whether we like politics or not, I'm not really a huge fan of politics, but it's a duty for me to do this. And I definitely am calling a lot of fellow warriors of light to play their role as well. And so you can help get candidates in the ballot if you don't run, or learn, like I said before, how to run for office yourself. Educational videos from our projects, like our debates, our symposiums, the United We Stand tour, and register to vote through the app, sponsor, supporter, community section. So finally, the blockchain voting app, as I mentioned before, will transform our voting system and transparency to the electoral process. Future plans include integrating the app voting functionality using alternative voting methods like instant runoff voting, ranked choice voting. That's spreading throughout the U.S. Approval voting, star voting. We aim to level the playing field by providing an informational, educational, empowering, inspiring, decentralized info hub beyond traditional social media, beyond platforms that can't be trusted, frankly, like Facebook and many others that are censoring a lot of things. So this platform is truly for the people, and I am honored to team up with Colin, being you are a beating heart of Nexus, and getting to know your team and your community better. So even though we're like in the debate, I'm gonna be here, and I want your team to know more about the blockchain app, and we will be mentioning this app at the presidential debate a week from today at Chicago Hilton, March 4th. It starts now at 2 p.m. We're going to have 2 rounds of debates because we have so many candidates. So we'll have like 10 candidates and then 11 candidates. And between everybody will come together. So this will be a great opportunity to teach all of these candidates about how blockchain is essentially our future.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the way too, because like I was mentioning earlier, the blockchain voting, to get it on a full global national level is going to take a while, but we need to prove the utility of it first. So even doing, popular votes, polls, different things like that people can put in the app. And also, we're going to make the app somewhat generic with creating your polls themselves, so that if you want to have just your own local vote for, some associated, anything, you can utilize the app to start to basically just do your own little voting systems as well. So that's where we're planning on that being kind of a lot of the utilities going to be pushing forward. There's also interest with, the Arizona state government with, different blockchain voting. I mean, we've talked to Dennis Kucinich and Ron Paul, and they were both really interested in the blockchain voting aspect. So as we get more of this, out of this proof of concept phase into the deployment phase and everything, there's going to be a lot of people that we believe are going to be helping support this. And potentially, you know, this could become a new type of standard, especially with so much, I guess, controversy with election fraud and everything else. I mean, if you guys remember the recounts in, you know, 2000 with Bush and whatever, I mean, it's ridiculous. And I mean, these voting machines themselves too can be rigged and hacked pretty easily. So we're, you know, kind of going the route of proving the utility of it and, you know, getting more people involved on it and showing. And so that first phase is going to be doing that. But as it gets further along, we're going to be hopefully seeing more actual recognition of that as valid voting systems, you know, and voter registrations and stuff. Right now, the KYC is just going to be basically by a phone number to make sure that you don't have double votes. But we will be wanting to, you know, improve that further, you know, through integrating through voter registration systems and everything like that. So, I mean, this application is going to be ongoing, obviously, and we're just getting this first proof of concept out to show people the utility of the blockchain voting, and then it's obviously going to be expanding out from there. Let's see.
Colin, I wanted to say we're excited, you know, not only Nexus being a sponsor of our presidential debate next Wednesday, but we have the Center for Election Science, which really specializes in approval voting. So we're going to be launching a poll prior to the debate, and after the debate, it will be polling that will be an approval voting poll, where the people can decide which candidate they feel of the 21 or the 10 and 10, 10 and 11 won that round of debate. So I'm excited to, in the future, to incorporate that poll directly into the blockchain app as well, because this is where we are right now. And other sponsors we have Wednesday is the National Association of Nonpartisan Reformers, NANNER. Taxpayers United America. Open the Debates is actually our official co-host. I consider them pretty much a host. And Independent Voter News, we just had Represent.us hop on today. Ballot Access News and Rising. So we're excited and honored to be truly a platform that is so many different like-minded individuals. And I do foresee it in today's time. The solution in bringing about that transparency is going to be through the blockchain ledger.
And it's a collaborative effort too. I mean, we don't want to just tackle this whole thing on, and that's part of, you know, the decentralized nature of it is this voting system kind of improves and grows. We want it to become, you know, an ecosystem with many different actors, many different people, because there's a lot of people that are teaming up trying to solve this voting issue. So we've been working closely with some of them, like Follow My Vote and Hunter, in order to, you know, continue to improve it. So.
Yeah, and you talk about, you know, the voting polls. Yes, there's an issue there. The fact that they're owned by default and Dominion. I've learned this from experts that have been a part of symposiums that are government officials that or left the government that don't like that these voting machines are, if you follow the money, it's tied to big money, powers that be. So blockchain is definitely an alternative way. We like to explore all different ways of being equal, but this definitely seems to be the best one now. And 5-10 years from now, I think something even better will rise. But there is definitely a need to bring about integrity within our voting system, starting with the actual voting machines itself. And it goes beyond that into the type of voting measures, which is we have a singular vote now, which is the worst kind of voting method we could have. You know, you go back into 04 and the past when Nader ran and they pulled that whole wasted vote, your vote because you voted for Nader, Al Gore lost. And no, I mean, the system, all it has to do is implement something like instant runoff voting, ranked choice voting, or approval voting. And that would get rid of the wasted vote facade that the two-party system, the solution has created, and get rid of the fear of voting for you know, the candidate that you really want to push you into voting for the lesser of the two maybe not good candidates. So there's so many solutions, and I think the ledger is going to support to elect the kind of candidates that are going to support these ideas and many more
too, right? I mean, the ballot, getting on the ballot is a huge thing. I mean, like even for the Libertarian Party, right? I mean, just getting visibility into the voting system is, you know, ridiculously difficult. So, I mean, we're hoping that this, you know, being free and equal, we'll be able to help level that a lot more, you know, when things eventually start moving toward blockchain, which we all know it's going to be, you know, you'll be able to have equal opportunity for each of these candidates, because right now it just really comes down to how much money you were sponsored with and who, you know, you have, you know, in the system that can pull the right strings, you know. So, I mean, we've we still like it's a democracy, but I mean, it's more of an illusion of democracy than it is, you know, actually true democracy. We hope that this technology can help actually, you know, improve that. Because I mean, back in the days, the founding fathers, they envisioned this system, and it works great. But I mean, a lot of the system itself is still running on that old technology. I mean, paper ballots. I mean, they have voting machines now, but even I mean, I'm not sure if any of you saw some of the bugs like for the election with Trump versus Hillary. I mean, somebody would try to vote for Trump and it would automatically select Hillary. And then you try to cancel, and then you try to select Trump, and then it'd vote for Hillary. And then you'd like cancel. And like the voting machines, they do this all the time. And there's, you know, a lot of bugs, quote unquote, you know, but like there's a lot of loopholes in that they're using to essentially rig the system. And, you know, we believe that this will help, you know, especially that availability for candidates.
Well, you know, when we had that private call with your dad and Dennis Kucinich and Dr. Ron Paul, I wrote down, you know, one thing that Dennis Kucinich said in that call, and it really taken it to heart. He said, energy of elections and technology will create something unrecognizable. And I couldn't agree more. And, you know, you go into the ballot access, restricted ballot barrier, that's a topic of all the electoral issues. That one's very near and dear to me. At 17 years of age, I saw my father wrongfully kicked off the ballot. For governor of Illinois, it's a third-party candidate, libertarian. I've always been an independent. But I support getting a count of candidates on the ballot. And after that happened, I spent almost a decade of my life helping independent-minded independents get on the ballot, primarily in Chicago, Illinois, which is really corrupt system, and somehow had an overall successful rate with that, but it was hard work. But in 08, stepped up to the plate to become the national ballot access coordinator for Ralph Nader as an independent for president. I would have done it for Ron Paul as well, but the number one reason he did not run as an independent for president in 08 is because of the restrictive ballot access barriers. Did you know it takes over 800,000 signatures, 800,000 signatures to get on the ballot as an independent for president? Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang wants to run as an independent. It'll cost anywhere from 7 to 10 million or 20 million or more just to get on the ballot. It only takes 25,000 signatures to get on the ballot as a Democrat or Republican. 800,000 to run as an independent for president, only 25,000 for the B's and R's. Unconstitutional. So I really hope and foresee that we will elect the sort of candidate that at the very least will make the ballot access the same for everyone. And then we go from there. But it should be no different for alternative, third-party candidates, B's, R's. I see every candidate as an individual party labeled side. And that's the direction I foresee us going, and the blockchain ledger will help us achieve that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, did you want to make a
Yeah,
comment?
Christina, thanks so much for the information you've given us so far. I just had a couple of questions for you, if that's okay.
Nice to meet you.
I think the first question that everyone wants to know is how far along in your application development are you, and do you have any kind of feel for when it might be ready and available?
Chuck Williams, unfortunately, I don't think he's able to make the call. Colin, is that something you could answer on that? We have surveys built out before the final presidential debate this October. So vision I really should say is that, yes, we're having our first presidential debate next Wednesday, March 4th, Chicago Hilton. And it'll be live streamed, by the way, on freeandequal.org. You can sign up for the live stream right away and make sure to get that. But we are having our United We Stand For. We have 6 stops this year, and the final stop of the United We Stand For will present our presidential debate, which is where we plan to launch the first phase of the blockchain app. Colin can detail of what that app will include, what we can get
Yes.
in
So
that.
our MVP, we're looking at a basic polling type of system so that people can run their own kind of local popularity polls. It wouldn't necessarily be legally binding, but just to start to demonstrate the qualities of blockchain voting. And then, I guess a smaller subset of the total information. I mean, we'll want to have the database cluster at least starting to give some form of candidate information, but the MVP is basically just minimal candidate information and a basic polling system where Just like on Telegram or anything else, you'll be able to just issue a poll and have that voted and then have that concluded and so on and so forth, so that that will essentially be available for anybody to do.
Yeah, I realize this might be a question that's better suited for Chuck, but we've talked about the need for visibility into voting data, and blockchain will provide that. But you also touched on the fact that current voting machines are full of software bugs and things like that. If you're going to develop an application, even if it's hosted, built on top of a blockchain platform, that application is also going to need to be able to come under public scrutiny to ensure that its validity, ensure there aren't bugs in it, things like that. So does that mean that the application that you develop will be open source, or will it be available for other organizations to use, and available for other organizations to vet your software? Because I'm guessing that isn't done with the voting hardware and software that is currently used in the US, at least.
Yeah, I mean, for right now, it's going to be, yeah, I mean, we're planning on having it open source, so that, other people can vet the code. They can make sure there's no bugs, because independent verification is really important. Open source is just as important for, the security as it is for the availability for other people and the peer auditing. So we're definitely going to be having it, as an open source software that other people can also take and, assess themselves.
So we've got a question here from
and I barely, it cut out just that I remember first your question there. Somebody asking at a panel when we had our blockchain panel there at Politicon a year or two ago now. And I remember the response from one of the participants and challenge us if the bug don't show us, so we can fix it and make it. I really like that take. So I was like, yeah. So I mean, that's why we're going to have this on a blockchain app that isn't part of the system. It's a part of free elections. And whenever we hit, if we hit bugs or curveballs, we work to make it as a team, a community, even better. So it's more difficult in the future. That was a great response. I think Chuck Williams of Dash is trying to hop on as well. So he just messaged me. He was in a meeting.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So we had a question here from one of our community members, and that's how is voter verification performed yet kept anonymous?
Right now, we're planning on doing it as a phone identification. So just building a simple SMS gateway where, we text you and you verify your phone number. And that's just a very, very basic form of KYC that we're going to be doing for the MVP. But obviously down the road, we would want to have voter verification done via, government APIs, things like that, if we're starting to get into actual voting for governments, or, different types of KYC systems, in the future, because yes, that verification is really important. Now, the voter's identity does not have to be exposed, even by knowing the phone number. We're just making sure that, we have some form of unique identifier that can be associated with a single individual, and then it makes it more difficult for an individual to go out and, make fake accounts, which, buying new phone numbers, is not the cheapest thing to do, but it's still something that's not undoable. But that's why our MVP is going to be essentially SMS verified. And then, further down the road, we're going to obviously improve that. It's kind of going to be an ongoing effort.
Would I be right in saying that that kind of voter verification sits outside of the blockchain side of the technology? It's not, it's going to be done elsewhere.
Yeah, logical layer. So there's no personally identifying information that's going to be exposed. And when it's a logical layer database cluster, that means that it's something that's not directly associated. Oh, there's Chuck.
Great.
We got Chuck here.
Hey guys, sorry about that.
It's all good.
I had another meeting. How you guys doing?
Good.
Chuck.
Pardon my interruption. Continue. I'll try and catch up.
No, we were just you can correct me if I misstated some of we're shooting for October for an MVP. We're going to do some form of small polls on the app itself, blockchain-based voting polls, like we discussed in the last call that we had. and then, a basic database for different candidates, and covering a bit on the verification side with MAID. We were talking about the SMS verification, age verification. Are they allowed to vote? We're not, like I said, the very first one is just SMS verification for the polls. So they're not going to be anything legally binding. It's going to take a long time to actually build up that case law and for people to start to say, okay, well, so by the time you get to a government using this voting app for, a domestic election or a state election, we're most likely going to be plugging into their verification system in some way, shape, or form, which is if they have a valid identity. If they have a valid identification, something like that, it's KYC'd, and then that becomes, account, essentially. All right. Now, did you get that, Chuck?
Yeah, I'm mute. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yes, I was just logging into Trello, and I was going to try and capture some of that as actions, or at least outstanding tasks. But it doesn't, it all aligns with my current understanding.
Okay, just making sure I didn't miss anything. So.
And Chuck, it's great to have you. I briefly introduced you at the beginning, but like Colin Camp, I met Chuck years or so ago, and I remember sitting down at Politicon outdoors and where all those food places were, and just listening to your vision, Chuck, in the crypto world and the work that you do, and wanting to bring about transparency within our monetary system and myself within the electoral system. And just the blockchain was just clearly so aligned with even Colin's vision as well, with the direction that we're going with free and equal elections. It's been about 12 years in the making, 20 years I've been in this industry. And so I'm really honored and excited to bring the two of you together. And then there's some others that aren't on this call with the coding and development and design of the blockchain app. But, I'd hope the community, if they don't know much about you, Chuck, maybe you could briefly introduce yourself as well, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah. I have been a developer most of my life. I've been consistently developing front-end code, focusing on JavaScript and UI, your front-end interfaces for about 22 years now. I guess my biggest contribution so far, my best is yet to come, but it has been the Shutterfly photo book application. If you guys have ever downloaded a book and printed on Shutterfly, I built, I'm listed as a patent inventor on that. I also helped FedEx launch their first version of the FedEx Print Online application, where you upload a document, you can pick it up at the local FedEx location. So architecting systems and focusing on front-end implementations, and I kind of sell myself as a person who is very much focused on empathic development. So I've spent a number of years just trying to understand human motivations, human psychology, and emotions in general. Because of my childhood, I had some interesting childhood where I had a whole thing of lacking emotions, and so I focused on emotions, and so I try to blend emotions and technology in my work. And that's where I land with empathic development. So that's essentially why I'm in this purpose of trying to bring financial freedom to individuals. I have a vicious hatred for any application or any piece of software or even any thing that is designed for humans and doesn't work as it's designed. I get so livid when things are just broken, and I think that our political system is just plain broken and people don't want to recognize it. So anything that I can do to help that is the main reason that I'm here.
Oh man, that's good. And I mean, a little context, Chuck and me, we met when we did the conference out for Bitcoin Miami and the hackathon, and that was just I know we have a lot of really cool stuff that actually came out of that, and we'll be going into that a little bit later down the road too. And Chuck talks about his project that he's working on over the next little while whenever he feels ready. It's kind of part of our use case highlights, but there's a lot of really interesting stuff that we're going on. And like, I mean, the fundamentals of the system being broken, yeah, Chuck, it's absolutely right. I mean, the voting system is just completely broken. I mean, the voting machines, I was mentioning this earlier, Chuck, if you saw the voting machines like back in 2016, right? Like you try to vote for somebody and then it switches to somebody else, and then try to vote for them and then it switches to somebody else. And it's just,
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not bug, dude. I mean, come on. Like,
Right.
but
Yeah.
so, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of issues, and we really think like, I mean, what we focus on with our use cases is making meaningful impacts with people, right? Things that are actually going to change things, right? Not just, you know, hey, I'm, you know, gambling with crypto on, you know, blah, 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 my gambling site stuff. I mean, just meaningful things. And this voting thing is something that's, I think, really, really important. And now, I mean, we haven't really had the technology before blockchain to have this immutable, auditable trail, you know, of voting. So, I mean, I think it's going to really change things. But I mean, you know, we might get some resistance along the way, as Christina, I'm sure, is very experienced when you are trying to change things, and it's corrupted. It's very difficult to, but, you know, I think we keep doing it. We will make that change. We will make that impact.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and I don't know how many people have been on this, this call or this team before, but it looks like we got a couple new names. The plan that as I currently understand it is that we're going to, I think you have a list of what I would call requirements up on your website, and those don't look very difficult to fulfill, but I think the earlier we can get started with testing some of these things through, the more likely we are to be able to add some additional refinements. Because one of the goals that I would like to achieve with this is to demonstrate to anybody who encounters this, new ways of voting. And I'm thinking of like some interesting things like quadratic voting or rank voting or multi-point voting. You know, there's a lot of different kinds of ways that we could do this. What is and is not legal, I don't really want to ask those questions. I would like for people who experience this to ask those questions.
Yep.
And I agree with Chuck. You know, incorporating all types of alternative voting methods, and we have a movement that helps to elect candidates free and equally across the political spectrum, beyond party lines. The blockchain ledger will allow us to see the candidates for who they truly are, so they can no longer, you know, hide behind party labels and so on. But I think it's definitely going to shift us in a direction where, you know, when we talk about our political system being a train wreck or having this discourse we have on our debate page, yes, our political system is broken. Our national political discourse is a wreck. It's time for an intervention. And, you know, that's where we're coming in with the debate. It's all strategic in educating people about the sort of alternative voting methods you were bringing up, Chuck, and even more. But I'm planning at the presidential debate to ask all of those 21 candidates to run for Congress. All we need is a couple hundred candidates to run those for their seats and replace most, if not almost, every member of Congress. It is unfortunately the big money, whether corporate, pharmaceutical power, that be accountable individuals that are asked by their community to run for office, that are already seeking for office, that realize that, wow, congressional races are far more important than presidential. And so I'm excited for this blockchain app to be building out all the candidates on it, targeting congressional candidates first, and to build this. I'm very eager to learn. I'm a moving part of the foundation, and a very important part I didn't bring up yet, though, is also on that call, and we had the Ron Paul. You know, the quote that he's repeated over and over again: if we're ever going to bring about revolutionary, he said revolutionary changes, they drop the R and go evolutionary changes. These two things would need to be involved: the youth and music. So it is strategic to target the 18 to 28-year-olds in the United States, but we welcome everybody that was at Woodstock and experienced the Vietnam War, and the people who are seasoned and know what our government's doing to educate, to speak, and our younger generation, millennials and so on, the truth. But through music, I feel like we can and will bring about the solutions. You know, John Lennon once said, "There are no problems, only solutions." So my take is the system is broken. Well, let's just fix it. It's going to be some work, yeah, hard work, but once the train gets going, it's taking off. And you can hop on the train, you can drive the train like Colin and Chuck here on this, the gentleman here today. It's going, there's no stopping it. So I'm excited for this idea to rise. And we only historically need about a couple percentage of the population to come to an idea to bring about true change, like the American Revolution. About 3% of the people backing that idea. So those are just some things I wanted to express to the community of Nexus that might not be aware your training or
Could you repeat that again, Christina? Your internet seems a little bit.
The last part?
Yeah, just that last part.
Oh, I just wanted to say those are just, that's just a bit more of the vision of a free and equal election to come from. So I wanted to share that with the Nexus community that isn't familiar with us quite yet. That is.
Awesome. Cool. Well, is there any more questions from anybody before we conclude? Can you find any questions, Paul?
No, I don't have any more for today. Sounds like an exciting project. It perfectly aligns with not only Nexus's core values, but also just the use of blockchain in general. Yeah, I'm excited to be part of this, and just excited to see it come to fruition.
Absolutely.
So on that note, I have added essentially the version 1.0 app features as initial cards in the Trello app. If you all have been able to log in and just check that out, I see a number of people are already on the team, and I expect to kind of work these cards, grant ownership, and start figuring things out as we kind of self-organize ourselves around the appropriate areas for ourselves to work. I don't really know where to start in terms of priority, but maybe that's something that we can plan on another meeting very soon, to just start going through these lists and being very pragmatic about what we can actively approach. And, I don't know how many, are there a number of people familiar with Agile software development? I would love to just kind of bring some of those practices to the team, and I think that can help us to just get focused and prioritize the most valuable, most important, and easiest to accomplish work the most quickly, so we can get something functional as quickly as possible.
Yep. And I mean, the first initial thing that we were thinking is proving the utility of the actual voting app. I see like Goody Six is saying we will implement something similar in Chile, is working on Valparaiso communities. Which, with the simple polling system, like you'll be able to create a sub poll with your own subset of people and create your own votes. So, it's not something that is exclusive to just the states. We're designing it to be something that other people can start to use, because we want to make it something people can look, touch, and feel, and experience themselves, so that they can see the utility for themselves of exactly how it works. And I think that's going to really start to drive a lot of it forward. So this app can be used, by you, Giddy, if you want. To help, people down in Chile, or, help reforming some of these things. And this is just another tool that you guys now have to help, fix things a little bit wherever you live.
Right on. Yeah, that's definitely an alignment. I guess there's that idea of making it so that anybody can use it. We have to figure out, there's just a lot of details tied into that, right? Like the registration process, or how do we structure all this data? Where does it get stored? What does the framework look like? From my conversations that I've had with Colin, it sounds like a good portion of this functionality could probably be handled by the Nexus IO platform.
Nexus does it for you, yeah.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's just going to be a matter of like learning what those API calls look like to kind of understand those structures, and for the rest of the team's benefit, Colin and I are trying to figure out some time to get together and do some whiteboarding, and just
that's for our
figure out
other project.
It is for the other project, but we're also going to talk about this one too, right? This is,
we'll have to talk about it today. We'll talk about it later.
right.
Don't say the name because we want to get namespaces and stuff.
Absolutely, yes. Well, I own all the domains, so that's already covered.
I'm talking about Nexus namespaces.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's good.
We need
Yes.
to start loading up on our blockchain domains now too.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, Colin and I, we need to kind of powwow about some of this, but I also want to. I guess I'm just going to designate Christina as our product owner, right? Because this is really her vision that we want to come to fruition in the agile methodology. And if anybody has any questions about that, like there's plenty of like learning material about Scrum and Agile and all that stuff. But designating roles early in a project always helps us to understand who's responsible for making what decisions. And I guess, de facto, Christina is our product owner. She basically makes all the decisions of what should and should not be a part of the end game, the product itself. And I would say, Colin, I'm going to nominate you as our developer technical architect person. And for now, I can be Scrum Master, which will just help us to kind of push forward the work. And, so it's going to help me to know anybody who's joined into Trello, or maybe I can plan on meeting with some members of this call one-on-one or in small groups so that we can understand what everybody's bringing to the table and where things might fit best in terms of self-organizing ourselves as functional development teams.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair. This Zoom is open to our community, so we've got quite a number of community members in here. So I think in terms of the specifics of how we're going to work out development and the methodology and things, we'll get on another call just amongst those developers who are involved and figure that.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Well, does anybody else have any more questions before we conclude for Chuck or Christina?
Nope, I'm pretty good for today.
Yeah.
I just had a comment. I apologize, not best connection. I'm noticing but there is our
We're not catching any of it, Christina.
Christina, you're just completely degrading.
Yeah, we didn't hear a single thing you just said.
I know, it's too bad, but the power is in our hands right here, and this is where we'll be directing everybody throughout the United. We stand for presidential debates to go on and sign up at this blockchain app and get engaged, get involved, run for office, give back to your community, do something. Doesn't matter how big or little, just something, because that's how we bring about true cultural change. Sure, I'm the visionary, but this blockchain app is for the people, it's built by the people. I lean on the experts. I'm a connector, but all the different experts we have in different worlds of free and equal and bubbles in the projects. You are truly the leaders. I yearn for me, not for cutting out the app for people.
Yeah, we didn't catch any of that, Christina. Are you guys getting that?
No.
No, it's breaking up.
Oh.
Sorry, Christina. We just cannot hear anything you're saying at the moment.
Yeah, connection might be really notoriously bad at the moment. Well, I guess then that's a good kind of point to segue and to close out. We'll be doing, we're kind of getting back into our weekly development meetings. So this was our first kind of use case highlight Zoom, where we're essentially, bringing people in that are developing different use cases that you guys be excited about and bring them in to highlight and kind of do a little interview, things like that. So this one wasn't focused necessarily on the development, but we'll be having more of those over the coming weeks. So thank you everybody for joining us on this call. We appreciate the time, and we're very excited to be moving forward on this. And thank you, Christina and Chuck, for your time today. We definitely appreciate that. All right. Well, I guess without further ado, yeah, Chuck, you should be able to unmute now.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yep.
I have a habit of muting myself when I'm not talking, so.
I do the same thing. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Okay.